After my birthday, I suddenly had a mind-reading technique that only worked for him. Looked at the brown sugar, motherwort granules and painkillers in my ex-boyfriend's bag. I asked him, "Who is it so complete?" His gaze was tilted to the side, and his tone was the usual cold for Winston Jewell. Heart, stupid. I didn't pay attention to my aunt when I came here, so I had to worry about it. I smiled meaningfully, and the end was long. Oh, Winston Jewell's coming to Auntie. The atmosphere fell into an eerie silence. Winston Jewell, who was about to greet us, looked at me with a look of horror. My boyfriend also had red earlobes and anxious eyes. HMPH, you deserve it. Let the two of you gang up and lie to me. Surrounded by laughter, I smiled and clasped my hands, and closed my eyes in front of the beautifully made cake. In fact, I didn't have the heart to make a wish at all, and I have been struggling with a major decision. So in the end, do you want to break up? Can the gods give me some instructions? It felt like a few seconds had passed, almost. I opened my eyes and gently blew out the candle. Today is my 21st birthday, and all my friends are here, except for him. There was a muffled knock on the door. My girlfriend went over to open the door, and I turned my head to look over. It was Abbott Onions. A little surprised, he turned out to be miserable today, soaked from head to toe in the rain. The jet black hair was still dripping, sliding down the swirling eyebrows, adding a bit of unruliness to the usual cold temperament. With such a beautiful skin, coupled with the results of the top rankings every time, it is no wonder that the souls of a large number of girls in the school, including me, have been snatched away. To be honest, it's rare to see him so embarrassed. I should feel schadenfreude. After all, as my boyfriend, he was absent from my birthday party. But I myself seem to have been so embarrassed in this relationship. My best friend said that girls can't be too active in their relationships, and they want to indulge in it, but I can't learn that. Countless stalkers took the initiative to pursue, and there was no scum left in the reserved scum of being a girl. Fortunately, I caught it. But the funny thing is that now I'm struggling with whether to let go or not. The abrupt appearance of the Abbott Onions suddenly gave way to an eerie silence in the room. I pursed my lower lip and walked over in silence. I want to take a towel and wipe him quickly, and I want to make some ginger tea for him to drink immediately, just in case I catch a cold. I guess it's better to forget it. To be honest, I don't know if he noticed it. I've been seeing him less lately, but I'm sure he's only happy when he notices it. Resist all kinds of actions that want to care about him. I deliberately smiled detachedly and asked softly, "Is there something wrong?" At a glance, I saw his hand in his coat pocket. Silently, he pulled out a small box and placed it in my hand. Feeling the coldness of his fingertips, I looked down. Somewhat unexpectedly, it turned out to be a perfume by Santa Maria Novel, one of my favorite perfume brands. Then his indifferent gaze swept behind me, his thin lips a little white. "I have other things to do, so I'll go first." Before I could answer, he turned around. Like countless times before, it left me with an emotionless back. I've messed up something as important as my birthday again, and Amanda Bird seems to be even angrier this time than the previous. In the familiar voice, there is a particularly unfamiliar frustration. I was stunned, and my tone was extremely excited. "Abbott Onions, what did you say?" He paused in his footsteps and turned his head to look at me in surprise. The friends in the room were also at a loss. I smiled unnaturally. "I'm sorry for the sudden auditory hallucination. I'm almost done playing, sending away my friends, who came to help me celebrate my birthday." The excitement faded, and in the small apartment my parents rented for me, outside the school, only my girlfriend and I were left for a while. I felt my best friend's anger for me. I pretended to smile lightly and waved the perfume in my hand. "Look, this is a perfume from SMN that I've been looking for a long time, and I don't sell it in China." My best friend scolded me angrily. "What can it mean? Does Abbott Onions have the money to go to the Daegu?" My eyes darkened, and I was speechless. My best friend looked at me hesitantly. I amusedly looked at her knotted eyebrows. Is this regret to comfort me? My girlfriend frowned and looked at me with a foolish look. On the 21st of last month, didn't Abbott Onions send you back after evening class? Then, he yelled at me like hatred of iron and steel. Guess why I know? Because that scumbag fucking ran away to the supermarket with other girls. The expression on my face froze. When a day is endowed with painful memories, then it must be very impressive, and September the 21st is such an existence. My aunt has always been more punctual, and she always arrives around the 20th of every month. On the 21st of last month, my aunt visited me as scheduled. It was a Wednesday in Abbott Onions, and I had full classes every Wednesday. Although it is almost October, the autumn tiger is still extremely fierce and hot to the heart. In the last public class of the evening, I didn't pay attention to sit in front of the air conditioner. Unsurprisingly, I got cold, cramps in my lower abdomen, and even my waist hurt. The lecture hall was full, and I couldn't change places. I held on until the end of class, and moved to the next laboratory building with difficulty. I went to Abbott Onions to send me back as usual, and I wanted to take the opportunity to be coquettish and ask for comfort. I finally managed to swallow it slowly. The students in class had already left, and the logistics teacher was preparing to lock the door. So, is it impatient to wait, and then go first? I looked down aggrievedly to hide my emotions, and clicked on my phone. After a day of class, the mobile phone and power bank were out of power. Looking at the phone that turned off automatically, I finally couldn't hold back, and the screen was wet with dripping tears. Walking in the night breeze, at that moment, I had a full day of classes. My aunt was in pain, my back hurt, and I was very tired. At that time, I suddenly realized that it didn't seem to matter whether I loved it or not. The scarred wound was torn open by the memory in an instant, and it was drenched in blood. My eyes were a little sore, and I tugged at the corners of my mouth and smiled self-deprecatingly. Oh, it turns out that there is another appointment. No wonder. I looked up at my best friend, choked up with determination. I'll ask him out tomorrow morning, and break up. My best friend hugged me in distress. Early the next morning, I neatly posted Facebook and Abbott Onions to meet at 10 o'clock in the cafeteria, and I had something to say. After parting like this, I can still have a beautiful brunch by the way. After sending the message, I felt relieved and threw my phone on the bed. After washing up, I put on my beautiful makeup and finished with a look in the mirror. After a night, my sister also figured it out. The bell rang for the end of class, and when everyone in the classroom was gone, I didn't hurry up and go to the cafeteria. At the door of the cafeteria, I was met by Abbott Onions' good brother, Winston Jewell. Unlike Abbott Onions, who is cold and cool, Winston Jewell is a comic. I wondered how they got together. Amanda Bird, you're here for Abbott Onions. It's not enough for you two to be tired of being in Florence on National Day. Florence. I've never heard Abbott Onions mention it. My heart fell, and a myriad of bad conjectures flashed through my mind for a moment. Pretend nothing happened and say goodbye to Winston Jewell. I kept looking for Abbott Onions with a cold face. It's annoying. I shouldn't have worn the clothes Amanda Bird gave me. I was stunned by the sound of soft footsteps. Although I came here to break up this time, my heart still tingles when I hear this reluctant words. No wonder we have been dating for so long, and I rarely wear the clothes I give him. People are not people who like it, so how can they like the clothes they give? I laughed self-deprecatingly. The clown was all myself. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward quickly. This time I won't get used to him anymore. Looking condescendingly at the man I had once obsessed with, I spoke coldly. Yesterday was my birthday. Where did you go? Seeing me suddenly appear, his always calm eyes seemed a little flustered. Oh, I still know that I am panicking. Why did I go earlier? My birthday is the last day of the 10-day National Day holiday, and no matter how many things I do, I have already dealt with them. He was wearing the same white sweatshirt I had given me last Valentine's Day, and I could catch a glimpse of a harsh brown stain on it. Combined with what he had just muttered, I felt my brain buzzing with anger. If you don't like the clothes, donate them. There's no need to waste them. His clear jaw angle was slightly sunken, and he visibly clenched his teeth, as if he was enduring something. There was still an imperceptible resentment in his eyes, and I didn't understand and became more and more angry. Abbott Onions didn't speak, and pushed the plate in my direction. On the table in front of him, he bought good rice, and he was steaming with steaming vegetable porridge and soup dumplings. My favorite breakfast. I swallowed silently. The gaze swept slightly, unmoved. Abbott Onions, I didn't bother you with my own strength before, and I won't do it in the future. We'll split. I've been reluctant to wear clothes, but the first time I wore them, I was tarnished by Winston Jule's doggy thing. I'm lining up to buy food for Amanda Bird. What's his business? I have to come in front of me to say hello, eat a soup dumpling, and beat him to death in a moment. These strange chatters and complaints interrupted me abruptly. I stared in shock at his mouth, which had been kept closed under the bridge of his nose. The whole brain is going to go down. Help me, help me. If I'm not blind, Abbott Onion's mouth hasn't moved. Gan. He must have lied to me, he actually knows ventriloquism. It must be so. Oh, and it's also on birthdays. Perhaps noticing that my gaze was wrong, Abbott Onions looked at me inexplicably. To figure out what was going on, I sat down slightly stiff and unconsciously took my breakfast and ate it. Tentatively asked, "Let me ask you, what are you doing in Florence on National Day? How do you know?" His thick and deep eyebrows pressed his eyes. As long as he didn't make an expression, he was a little fierce, not to mention frowning now. In the past, I must have been worried about whether he was angry. Right now, whether or not I want to break up with him is still up for debate. Do you care about his little emotions? Winston Jule said. I didn't hesitate to betray Winston Jule. His eyes were a little evasive, and he spat out a few words like gold. It's a little something. Heart, I'm unlucky, not to mention that the plane is late, and I can't get a taxi in the rainstorm, otherwise I won't miss Amanda Bird's birthday. It's very annoying. Trying to contain the shock in my throat, I kept my eyes on Abbott Onion's mouth. It seems that I am really a late bloomer, and I have awakened the mind-reading technique. It's outrageous. However, if you don't experience it firsthand, who would have thought that there is such a wealth of emotions, hidden under this extremely cold skin, that seems to care about me? Not sure why. Hearing these emotionally charged words, Abbott Onion's ascetic and cold face came alive to me. By the way, the only mission I've been here has yet to complete. Thinking about this, my mind suddenly cleared up. I wiped my mouth and glanced up at Abbott Onions, ready to break up again. Turning his head to the side, he took out the perfume he gave yesterday from his bag, intending to return it to him. In mid-air, I held the box for a moment. Suddenly, two clues automatically connected in my mind. So, didn't he go to the main store in Florence to buy this perfume for me? Ignoring Abbott Onion's puzzled eyes, I hesitated and put the perfume back in my bag. I've got to get this straight. Why did you treat me coldly while not bothering to buy this perfume for me? Duplicity can't play with me like this. On Sycamore Road on campus, Abbott Onions and I walked side by side. I took the perfume out of my bag again and neatly unwrapped it, pressed, sprayed twice in the air. I closed my eyes and soaked up the woody scent of the air around me. The sweet aroma of vanilla reveals hints of leather, tobacco and ink. Anyone familiar with me knows that I love SMN's fragrances. But my best friend and Abbott Onions have only accidentally talked about their favorite Tuscan tobacco perfume. But, what I didn't tell anyone is, what I like most about Tosca is because, when I accidentally smelled the sample, it smelled like it was my match with Abbott Onions. It's a pity that none of the domestic stores sell this one. The fragrance dissipated in the wind, and I opened my eyes lightly, with a faint expression. As my boyfriend, Do you think it's appropriate to miss my birthday party? His eyes flickered with frustration and paused. I'm sorry, Heart. There is a flight to Florence only 3 days before my birthday, and I have to transfer on the way. On the night of returning home, I encountered heavy rain as soon as I got off the plane, and I waited for a long time to get a taxi, and then it was too late to arrive, and I'm all wet, and it's only a nuisance to go in. After listening to his pitiful inner words, I was stunned. The tip of the heart is sour, soft, and indescribable. Put the perfume back in your bag and put it away. He tilted his head and looked at Abbott Onions nonchalantly. He noticed my gaze and looked a little confused. I grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and pulled it in my direction. As I breathed, I asked him with a small chuckle, "How's the SM and head office in Florence? It must be spectacular, right?" I could feel that the rhythm of his breathing was suddenly out of order. Yet, it's okay. Inside, what a good. The area is not large. The inside is so dark. The shelves are high, and the shopping guide has to step on the ladder to pick up the goods, which delays me a lot of time. After patiently listening to his rich and active inner evaluation again, I was upset and helpless. I let go of his hand, and my expression suddenly froze. I really don't understand. Why can't you just talk to me if you have something to say? If I didn't have mind reading, wouldn't I ever know these words? Heaven suddenly gave me such a whole thing in a mess, and it disrupted my original decision to break up. That's right, I'm going to look at him for a while. If my best friend knew, she would definitely hate me again. But, at least I know now that I'm not the only one in this relationship who is wishful thinking. In the end, no matter what the outcome is, I will definitely offer hot pot barbecue milk tea to my girlfriend to excuse myself. The life of a graduate student is always full of papers and experiments. In the psychological experiment being carried out in hand, there are enough female subjects, but there are still several male subjects. Thinking of the little time left, as well as a large amount of follow-up data, processing and literature review, it was a headache for a while. I don't care about my current delicate relationship with Abbott Onions. Pull out your phone and contact Abbott Onions. Briefly explain the situation and ask him to find a few more boys. Not long after, Abbott Onions hurried into the lab with some shortness of breath. I thought, this is obviously running. Greeted by the scent of shampoo, I looked at his slightly damp hair. It's not that you don't need to wash your hair. I'll wash it. He tilted his head, a little unnaturally to explain. I just played ball, and I was afraid that my hair would be too dirty, so I washed it myself. I nodded non-critically. Take him to the laboratory's bathroom. He consciously stood in front of the pool, bent on his knees. He looked like a big dog with his head bowed obediently, matching my height. I picked up the shower head to adjust the water temperature. It felt almost like that, and poured water over his head. How's it going? Is the water temperature right? It's a good, comfortable. I was a little choked, and I didn't need to add to the second half of the sentence. Squeezed some shampoo and lathered it into his hair. My fingers ran between his black hair, scrubbing his scalp earnestly with my fingertips. He snorted comfortably and casually. I paused, and he seemed to feel it. I noticed that his ears were instantly red in his wet hair. With my back to him, I laughed silently and bent my eyes. The hand pretended to rub inadvertently against his ear. It's so red that it's dripping blood. After washing his head 3 times, he was taken back to the outside of the laboratory. Sit on the couch and I'll blow your hair. No, I'll do it myself. Because of what happened just now, his expression was a little cramped for a while. I snorted. You have other things to do when I blow your hair. Let him scan a QR code and fill out a large questionnaire. After a long time, I touched his scalp and tested the temperature, and it was okay. Bring him to the lab again. When he put on an hat, he subconsciously habitually quipped, "This may be the most expensive hat you've ever worn in your life. Hundreds of thousands." He tilted his head to the side of the window and muttered under his breath, Maybe it's the ugliest look I've ever looked like in my life wearing a hat. I burst out laughing. I don't know if it's an illusion or what, but it feels like he's smiling too. Cleanse the skin around the hairline with a scrub. Inject brain ointment. A series of experimental steps are completed in an orderly manner. The time for each participant is allocated in advance. So now, as soon as I've done the experiments on Abbott onions, Winston Jewell is here. I went over and opened the door to let him in. After a brief introduction to the experiment, it was time to take him to the bathroom. Abbott Onions strode over, grim looking. As for him, do you want to wash your hair yourself? Winston Jewell was on the sidelines, daring to be angry. I gave him a look, or else. The angle of his jaw was slightly sunken, and he gritted his teeth and said viciously, I'll wash him. I hesitated, but nodded in agreement. Yes, but you should be careful to scrub his scalp with your fingertips, and wash it 4 times, so that it is easier for the instrument to measure. He nodded, word by word solemnly assurance. Don't worry, I'll rub him clean with all my might. His tone matched the frightened look in Winston Jewell's eyes. I don't know. I thought he was going to rub Winston Jewell's head off as well. I worked hard to sort out the data for a while, and the two of them came back. Abbott Onions walked ahead, followed by Winston Jewell. I don't know why, but I always have the illusion that Winston Jewell has lost a lot of hair. I stood up. Good work. Sit down. I'll blow your hair. Abbott Onions furrowed his brow. Doesn't he have hands himself? Ignoring his vexatious pretensions, I asked Winston Jewell to scan the QR code and fill out the questionnaire and pick up the hair dryer. Winston Jewell smiled at Abbott Onions. I could clearly feel that the air pressure around Abbott Onions was lower, as if it was about to blacken. Although I didn't think it was a big deal to watch the excitement on the sidelines, I still explained it. I have to feel the temperature and humidity of his scalp at all times during the hair drying process, so that I can officially experiment with him. The hair dryer is working. From time to time, it is mixed with Simone's resentful heart. Abbott Onions, it's annoying. Where does Winston Jewell have Amanda Bird to blow her hair out? This should be my own. Hate Winston Jewell. Hate this experiment. Hate all the male subjects in Amanda Bird. Except me. The veins on my forehead jumped abruptly. Ever since I thought about breaking up with him, I've been a lot more comfortable in front of him. I don't deliberately hold the gentleness that doesn't belong to me anymore. I didn't hold back for a moment, and the eye knife slammed towards Abbott Onions. It's noisy. Shut up. Abbott Onions looked at me innocently and blankly. Winston Jewell was also confused, his gaze wandering between the two of us. I frowned in annoyance and explained dryly, your breathing is noisy to me. This time, he couldn't hide the hurt in his eyes. The corners of his mouth tightened, and there was a grievance in his tone. Then I'll go first, and I'll send me a message if I have something. Don't worry, Amanda Bird. Abbott Onions are so coaxing. It just so happens that he won't ask for your test fee, so you can use that money to buy him some snacks and coax him in a while. I quibbled awkwardly. What do I have to worry about? You mean he likes to snack? Why don't I know? I was still a little guilty just now, but now I'm a little unhappy. HMPH. For my girlfriend, I haven't been honest with Winston Jewell. Abbott Onions doesn't like snacks either. They mainly like the snacks you buy. When you gave him a snack before, he wouldn't let me touch it, preferring to invite me to eat instead. Heck, I'm paying too much for a dog food. I remember, some time ago, my parents came to see me and brought a lot of snacks or something. I couldn't eat it, so I brought a big bag to Abbott Onions. After thinking about it, my heart instantly filled with a hint of sweetness. After the experiment was done for all the subjects, it was already evening. I went straight to pick up Abbott Onions from class. I approached him head-on and shook a large bag of snacks in my hand, tilting his head to tease him. Brother, do you want to have a snack? The kind of snack full of apologies. Abbott Onions tilted his head slightly. There was no change in expression on his face, but the tips of his ears were red, and he took the snack honestly with the movements of his hands. Look, I bought you so much. Can I eat a little? His expression suddenly hesitated, like a puppy reluctant to share food, and his eyes were wet. It looks cute with some contrasts, I added in a trailing note, but I'm so busy that I haven't finished eating. That's even worse. Eating snacks on an empty stomach is not good for your stomach. I'll take you to eat. I really didn't expect that. I had to obediently follow him to dinner. On this day, I accompanied Abbott Onions on the way back after playing ball. Abbott Onions told me to wait where I was while he went to buy water. I looked around in a good mood. Suddenly, it dawned on me, it wasn't Virginia Ingersoll. Hurriedly smiled and waved hello to her, and the two trotted to a big bear hug. My best friend is a geography major, and she went out for a geological investigation for more than a month before coming back. Babbled and talked nonsense for a while. The topic shifted. Well, you've been happier since you broke up with Abbott Onions, haven't you? Therefore, listen to my sister's advice and eat. I was just about to explain it to my girlfriend. My face changed as I caught a glimpse of the figure behind Virginia Ingersoll, panicked looking at Abbott Onions, who came back from buying water behind his girlfriend. It seemed that he had heard it, and he was covered in low air pressure. His fingers clenched the drink. His face darkened. He didn't speak, and turned away. I trotted to follow. Virginia Ingersoll, I'll explain to you next time. My girlfriend now apparently understood that I hadn't broken up with Abbott Onions at all, and yelled at me angrily, Amanda Bird, next time he goes to the supermarket with another woman, don't cry to me again. I paused in the middle of my steps, the scene of the last time pouring into my mind along with the wind. Before I knew it, I was in the hallway of a school building, and I trotted to finally catch up with Abbott Onions. I stepped forward and grabbed the corner of his coat. Abbott Onions, listen to me. I was a little tempted to break up, but that's because I misunderstood you, I thought, anxiously explaining incoherently. I stopped abruptly, and so he was, standing expressionlessly, like an emotionless statue, delicate but cold. Seeing my anxiety and fear, I kept explaining to him, like a clown. At the same time, a stream of heat suddenly swept through the lower abdomen. As a woman, I know what a sign this is. Suffer. I forgot that I was about to reach my menstrual period recently, and I was still hungry and thirsty just now, so I tasted a few sips of the new fruit tea that my girlfriend bought. No way, the lower abdomen has begun to ache dully. I was in a hurry to explain, but my whole figure slammed into a slam. Scatter your legs and prepare to run to the toilet. Just took half a step, paused. Damn, I didn't bring my aunt's towel. I clutched my stomach uncomfortably, and my lower abdomen fell and fell. With a pale face, he looked at the only person in front of him who could be turned to for help. Looking at the confused eyes, I was anxious and aggrieved for a while. Can you go to the supermarket and buy? Heck, forget it. I'd better contact Virginia Ingersoll. Turn around and I'm leaving. He reached out and grabbed me, whispering, wait a minute. Abbott Onions neatly removed the bag from his shoulder. Didn't say anything? It was annoying silence again, and this time even the mental activity was gone. I don't believe I can dig flowers out of my bag. Seeing the few things he took out one after another, his heart fell into the ice cave. Abbott Onions. A big man. Where did he get ginger brown sugar, painkillers and motherwort in his school bag? Ginger ale brown sugar can also quibble about the cold of the body. Motherwort granules. The function of this medicine is really not too targeted. After the anger came up, I was so angry that I forgot about my aunt's pain. I said sarcasm, staring straight at him. Why, it's so well prepared. It can't be for Winston Jewell. He didn't explain, and was still rummaging around. Finally, he took out a bag of things from the hidden compartment of his bag and stuffed it into my hand in a panic and quickly. I looked down. Gan. Isn't this a sanitary napkin? She looked up at him, with wide eyes in surprise. His cold, white-skinned face, I don't know when, turned red, under my straightforward gaze. He was completely annoyed. If you still go to the toilet, don't you give it back to me? I have to admit that my mood is really capricious during my menstrual period. I was still angry just now, but now I snorted and laughed out loud. Serious matter. Quickly slipped to the toilet. After washing my hands and coming out of the toilet, Abbott Onions took me to the nearest empty classroom. Then, he left without saying a word. I sat a little nervous, racking my brain for an explanation of the breakup. Do you want to tell Abbott Onions? I can actually read minds, and it only works for him. If he did, wouldn't he just break up, and then turn around and send me to a mental hospital? After all, if I wasn't the party, I wouldn't have done it. Abbott Onions returned with his thermos mug. The deep and deceitful voice suddenly interrupted my chaotic thoughts. Drink this. After taking a few sips of sweet and spicy ginger ale brown sugar water, warm, so caring, I had the courage in an instant. Taking a deep breath, he looked up and smiled sweetly at Abbott Onions. He frowned at me for a moment, looking away. He said angrily, "Aren't we going to break up? It's not good." I immediately burst into tears, taking perfect advantage of my aunt's pain, and squeezing out a few tears. Pear Blossom looked into his eyes with rain. That's right, I did it on purpose. I'm just trying to beat it upside down by relying on my menstrual period. Talking and talking. I don't know if it's because of the menstrual period, or if the words are sad. What about you? You're very sweet. But what about the 21st of last month? I choked up and complained. Did you know that the biggest pain I had that night wasn't my stomach? You left me alone without saying a word. By the way, where did you get sanitary napkins for a big man? Tears snapped and dripped uncontrollably. I heard him sigh softly. He gently wiped the tears from my jaw with the tip of his index finger, and then touched my head again. He walked over, pressed down his upper body, and hugged me into his arms. Suddenly, there was a throbbing of the tip of my heart. I looked at his weeping face, helpless, trying to read his expression. Saw the same helplessness. Seeing my tears intensify, he finally spoke awkwardly. In the last class that night, Winston Jewell was in the same public class as you, and he messaged me that you didn't look good. I guess you might discomfort during menstrual periods. I just ran out of class and bought you some medicine or something. As a result, who knows what kind of promotion the supermarket was doing that day. And after waiting in line for a long time, the phone was turned off when I called you. Look at the way he explained with extra caution. I sobbed and asked, "Who's the girl you're shopping with at the supermarket? You're going to the supermarket too?" I was unceremonious. Did I ask you, or did you ask me? He pursed his lips and thought for a moment. You're probably talking about Eden Onions. She's my cousin, and I happened to meet her at the supermarket that day and asked her for something a girl needs. After listening to the series of explanations, I was quiet for a long time. I believed everything he said, but wiped away the tears that I couldn't stop. I looked up at Abbott Onions seriously. After dating for so long, you hide deep enough. It turns out that you are a mute. Abbott Onions, is this the only way that you are willing to talk to me so much? Is it only when I am going to break up with you? Are you willing to explain to me seriously, and no longer make me uneasy and self-doubtful? I didn't wear the clothes I was given, but I was reluctant to wear them. And I didn't find him after class because I ran to buy me brown sugar and motherwort. So he's mute. Or does he like me and care about me, so he feels embarrassed? Put away your disorganized thoughts. You know, I've always wondered if my love is burdening you. I stood up, looked down with teary eyes, and noticed that his eyes were just as red and full of distress. When I found out, he quickly lowered his head in a panic. All the misunderstandings have been solved, but today is destined to be unhappy. I turned around and was about to leave. He was visibly panicked and hurriedly grabbed my hand. Amanda Bird, I'm sorry. Please don't. Before he could finish speaking, I shook his hand away. Better a finger off than always aching. If we want to go on with each other, we must get rid of his dumb behavior. Seeing that I was in a bad mood, my girlfriend dragged me for a walk on campus after eating. Suddenly, my girlfriend ripped off the corner of my clothes. Amanda Bird, look, that pink sweatshirt is the girl who went to the supermarket with Abbott onions last month. I slouched for the prestige. A sweet girl, Virginia Ingersoll. Last time it was a misunderstanding. That girl was Abbott Onion's cousin. The misunderstanding was solved. The best friend, the Yan dog, is obviously caught in a nymphomaniac, and her mouth is full of emotion. TSK. The genes of the Onions family are so good, and one or two are all thieves. I noticed that the girl was walking straight up to me. I froze in place, not knowing how to react for a moment. Eden Onion's smile is bright, and it's easy to get a good impression of it. Hello, Sister Amanda Bird. I'm Abbott Onion's cousin, Eden Onions. Hello, I'm straight to the point. I want to plead with my cousin, and Sister Amanda Bird can refuse me. After all, my resentful cousin is really not authentic. I was amused by her words. Okay, let's sit on a chair over there and talk. Seeing this, my girlfriend found an excuse to run away first, leaving us room to talk. What I'm going to say may be a bit long. Thank you, Sister Amanda Bird, for being willing to give my cousin a little more chance. My uncle and aunt are both refined egoists, and the two are independent business marriages. And after they have a cousin, they each continue to expand their own business territory. So my cousin and I live in my grandfather's house. Actually, my brother, when I was a child, I was a very sunny and cheerful child, and I liked to share myself with the people around me. She smiled brightly as she talked about Abbott Onions, and I couldn't help but be amused. Probably noticing my surprised look, she paused. I can't think of it. Not many people know about it. He also often quarrels with the parrots raised by his grandfather, and the rambling is endless, and the rambling is very. Once, my cousin missed an exam in order to save a puppy, which caused his final grades to drop from first to average. When his uncle and aunt found out, they were very angry, took him back, and arranged for relevant nannies and professional teachers to strictly regulate his life and study. Speaking again, Eden Onion's voice was already choked up. The desire to share needs to be perpetuated by response, and so is love. The uncles and aunts' responses to all of my cousin's achievements and emotions are based on grades and future development. The word excellent is not so much a compliment to him, but a shackle that his parents have brought him up and brought up. Later, when I saw my cousin again, I is to work as a playmate, cooperate with a psychiatrist, and help treat my cousin's autism and depression. Thanks to our joint efforts, my cousin's condition has improved a lot, and Eden Onions wiped away tears that had suddenly gone out of control. That time in the flower room, my cousin was helping me make handicrafts, and it turned out to be such a coincidence, and I accidentally overheard my uncle and aunt talking to a psychiatrist. Uncle and aunt, well, they even told the doctor that it was enough to treat the condition from moderate to mild, and there was no need to completely heal and return to the original state, because they think that autism will instead increase his efficiency and stop wasting time and energy on useless nonsense and irrelevant people. At that time, my cousin covered my mouth and didn't let me cry, and his eyes were really calm. I took out a tissue and gave Eden Onions a thin wipe on her crying little face. The other hand clenched unconsciously, and the fingertips sank into the flesh, and it hurt, but it's not as distressing. After a while, Eden Onion's mood gradually calmed down. She grabbed my hand and sniffled and said seriously, Sister Amanda Bird, tell you this, I don't mean to kidnap you morally or anything. No one in this world is obliged to save or redeem anyone. I am just a cousin's family. I want to help him fight as much as I can. But you are an independent individual, and whether you want to go down with your cousin in the end is still to be considered from your own perspective and reason. Back to the apartment in the evening, I spread out on the couch, curiously looking through all the chats between me and Abbot Onions. The brain made up for the appearance of Abbot Onions when he was a child, and he muttered unconsciously, "He has a drag brother's face, but he has a broken mouth. This contrast is cute and cute, ha ha ha." His mind flickered to what had happened to him later. The pain in my heart is dense. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. At night, listening to the constant knocking at the door, I walked over and looked through the cat's eye. Then the door opened. The other party was unsteady on his feet, flushed from face to neck. No wonder the rhythm of knocking on the door is irregular. It turns out that he is drunk. Standing there, like a big dog who has just returned from a stray trip, he looked at me for a moment, looking at his drunken stupid appearance. What can I do? I had to pull him into the house. "What are you here for?" He sat quietly, and without answering, he continued to stare at me. "It looks like the brain stem has been drained." "Never mind." I got up and went to pour him some honey water. He finally stopped pretending to be dead. He hugged my thigh and died, like "I'm afraid I'll run away." Scared the hell out of me. His voice was unusually low. "Amanda Bird, I'm drunk. Now I can throw away everyone, and the past. Just be myself, and get drunk and apologize to you. I was wrong. I was like a dumb all day long. I don't tell you anything. I don't feel safe. I should swallow 10,000 silver needles. Please forgive me." "Forget it. Don't forgive me. I can't forgive such a person myself. You still punish me, but can you not break up?" I was a little stunned and gently touched the top of his head. His eyes shone brightly. "Maybe getting drunk is also a way. Until you get drunk, until you say something in love." It turns out that as long as he takes the initiative to take a step towards me, I will be so soft-hearted. From an angle he can't see, I smiled helplessly. It's hopeless. No matter how I think about it, I find myself reluctant to let go of the person in front of me. I crouched down and pressed my forehead. The four eyes looked at each other. There was no way to avoid it, and reason completely collapsed. I shoved myself into his arms. It turns out that even when he is drunk, he will not forget to hug me tightly. After a few days of cloudy weather, it finally cleared. The bright morning sun pours on every corner of the bedroom. When I woke up, I watched him sleep in boredom, catching his slightly quivering eyelashes, obviously pretending to be asleep. I stared at him for a moment, then he sat up suddenly, and suddenly let out an anxious whisper. "Oops, forgot to have class this morning. It's over, it's over." He opened his eyes and frowned puzzled. "On the class schedule, you didn't have classes all morning." Seeing my playful eyes, he suddenly paused. Unnaturally, he raised his hand and rubbed his eyes, pretending to be sleepy-eyed. What's the use of looking so good? It's a vase in terms of acting. Last night, I refused to communicate with him. The main thing is that he is so drunk that he reveals his sincerity to me, and it is enough for him to say so much alone. But if I talked too much with him as a drunk, the next day he was completely forgotten and blind. I got straight to the point. "Don't be afraid to express yourself in front of me in the future. In fact, I am very willing to listen to your broken thoughts. Also, each of us is imperfect for each other, and running into each other is a must for us to love each other." He didn't react on his face, pursed his lips and didn't speak. The Adam's apple seems to move gently. Is this alcoholism poisoning stupid? It turns out that Amanda Bird's voice when she just woke up is like this. The bubble sound is so seductive. I want to kiss her and hug her high. I want to throw her the bed, kiss her so that I can't speak. Hearing his heart, I blushed and my heart jumped. Some of them can't bear it anymore. "Do you want to tell him?" I can hear all these inner words of his. I thought he was a little shy. Finally, he seemed to react, hurriedly asked, "Amanda Bird, you just said that it will be later. So are you not breaking up with me?" right, rendered by his overly excited emotions. I suddenly squirmed a little. Yes, 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 there's more. If you want to say you like me, but you're shy, then you can say I miss you. If you still can't do it, kiss me. And if you kiss me and I don't understand, you can kiss me twice, and I will definitely understand. As he spoke, he held his face and looked into his eyes seriously. He broke free from my hands like a big aggrieved dog, buried his face in my arms, and hugged me tightly. After a while, his voice choked up and was a little indistinct. Amanda Bird, I'm not worth it. You don't want to be so good. It's not good. I felt the wetness on my shoulders, and the tip of my nose astringent. For him, it hurts so much. Once a year, my birthday is here again. My best friend took me to a place in a doggy way, saying that there was a surprise. When I got to my destination, I looked around. The surroundings are a bit too romantic, but they don't feel like they're celebrating a birthday at all. It's like, looked at the excited expression of his girlfriend, who couldn't hide it. I curled the corners of my lips silently. Suddenly, his mind moved, and he tilted his head backwards. It's a coincidence. Abbott Onions was caught and looked straight into his eyes. I don't know how long he watched it. Neither of them seemed to expect it, and he subconsciously bent his eyebrows. Winston Jewell was shoving him. Abbott Onions squirmed like a big girl about to get on a sedan chair. My gaze remained silent as I swept over Winston Jewell and his girlfriend as they quietly exited, then linger on Abbott Onion's today suit. So handsome, worthy of my boyfriend. Dig a hole for him unceremoniously. Why do you look reluctant? If you don't want to come, you can't come. He panicked and stepped forward and grabbed my hand, as if he was afraid that I would be angry. Inside, isn't Winston Jewell's bad idea a bit dirty? And will Amanda Bird dislike it? Woo woo. Amanda Bird is so cold. He doesn't look very excited, and he doesn't like it. Nonsense. You haven't said anything. I'm excited. He stared at me with a flushed face all the time, and he stammered nervously when he spoke. No, I didn't even be able to spend my birthday with you last year. This time, I want to. This time. My heart was beating faster. What are you thinking? Seeing him nervous like this made me amused and nervous. What the hell are you going to say? Don't delay my birthday. I pretended to turn around and leave. He hurriedly pulled me into his arms. Don't go. I'm still responsible for you. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, what's the responsibility? His solemn voice came from his ears again. I love you. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't find the focus for a moment. I tilted my head and stared straight at him, grinning and starting to tease. Who do you love? Why don't I understand? It feels like he's about to get cooked. His face is flushed, and his ears are red. Ha 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 ha. He leaned over and stopped me from laughing. He lowered his head and gently sucked my lips. I love you, Amanda Bird. HMM. Without waiting for me to respond, he put his palm on my head and kissed me again. Abbott Onions loves the best and best Amanda Bird in the world. Looking up and looking at each other. Why did his voice suddenly become so low? Amanda Bird, give me a chance that I can be honest with you for the rest of my life. How much I love you. Oops, how did he suddenly become so? I hugged his narrow waist tightly. I buried my red face in his arms, and my voice was hoarse. Okay. I celebrated my birthday with a group of friends and went home. Sitting on the sofa, he took me to watch a variety show together. Amanda Bird, I feel like you've changed a lot since your birthday last year, and you've become more open-mouthed. My eyes narrowed. You're actually trying to say rough, and not gentle. It's not as gentle as it used to be, but I like you more like this, because you were gentle with me before, but you yourself were not happy. Seeing my eyes killing, he hurriedly added. I suddenly got into thought, clenched the engagement ring on his finger. I wondered if I should tell him that I had superpowers. That is, will this newly arrived fiancé be scared away? I pulled out of his arms. Ahem, I'll tell you something seriously. You must listen to me carefully. Don't run, he obediently promised. Don't run, never run. Well, that I can read minds, but only you, since you gave me a birthday present on your last birthday. Oh, forget it, I won't explain it to you. I'll speak with facts and give you a performance directly. Come, think something in your heart, and then I'll tell you what I've heard. Have you figured it out? He replied with a doting look in his eyes. All right. Hey, why didn't you hear anything? If you think about it again, you may not have been paying attention just now. I looked at him suspiciously, suspecting that he was not doing his mental activities at all. Because I still haven't heard anything. He thought for a moment, reassured me, who was already a little impatient, and said, maybe it's because this superpower has been retired, and it's been a whole year, and it has helped us solve a lot of misunderstandings and make us what we are today. So the two of us are the fate of God helping each other. I reluctantly accepted his explanation. All right then. By the way, what did you just think in your mind? The first time, the only time I was excited was you, and it was only you. The second time is, I will always be in love with you, 1,000 times. Finally, you don't need mind reading anymore. Just ask me if you want to know anything. No, you don't need to ask. I'll tell you personally. Amanda Bird. I blushed uncontrollably and my heart beat again, and I buried my red face in his arms. Actually, I know he didn't believe that I had any so-called mind-reading skills, but he was still willing to indulge me. 20 extra, after marriage. Once upon a time, I thought I would never have regrets in my life, because I firmly believe that after making every choice, no matter what the result is, you can be free and easy. Later, I had a regret. It's a shame I couldn't have met Abbott Onion sooner. Then I could run up to him and hold my boy tightly, tell him that he is already the best. I feel distressed that I can't protect him when he was a child, but I can't say any of that. Abbott Onions has his own pride. Maybe it's because I'm pregnant. For a while, I became sentimental again. Even Abbott Onions walked over with something in his hand, not paying attention. He put things away. I looked at him distressedly, and then wrapped my arms around his apron-tied waist. Somewhat unsure, he gently touched my head, coaxed me to eat some freshly cut fruit, said that the food was ready. The sunset just came out and took me for a walk. Under the street lamps, the evening breeze carries the coolness of autumn. With his fingers interlocked, he grabbed my hand and tucked it into his coat. His eyes lit up in the moonlight, and he smiled at me tenderly. The end.